Studios. This is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, 25 minutes before 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. So just a quick story to share with you so that I can introduce our next guests. Gosh, years ago, Robin, you and I did a radio show at a different radio station, and it didn't look good. Little by little, there was fewer and fewer people working there, and next thing we knew, we were the only people working there. And it just seemed like inevitable that in a matter of time, we were probably not going to have a job. And so that day happened, and we were both bummed out, and it was summertime. And because it was summertime, well, might as well go to the river, right?
Yeah.
So we went to the Rainbow River. For those who are local, you know that's a beautiful river. And we did that inner tube thing where you sit in an inner tube and you just float. Right?
Yeah, I love that.
And you let the current take you to the exit ramp, which was about 4 hours. Was it about a 4-hour thing?
4 hour.
Okay.
Yeah, 4 hours.
So I enter the river. Here's why this has to do with our next guests. I enter the river. I am telling you, full of anxiety, not feeling too happy. You know, I don't have a job, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, the world feels like it's crashing. I feel so much pressure. And then I get into the river, and as I'm going down the river, it all goes away. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what was I worried? Why I should do this? This is like therapeutic. It was therapy for me, Robin.
Very.
By the time we came out of the river, I had 4 hours basically to just think about what was going on in my life. And there was a point, the key point was when I said, you know what? Everybody goes through this. I'm not alone. I can do this. I had a rocky moment, Robin. Dr. Alex Lickerman and Dr. Ash Eldifrawi, I hope I'm saying that name correctly, have written a book. It's called The 10 Worlds, The New Psychology of Happiness. And you know, there is part in the book, I didn't read the whole book, but there's part of the book that I related to where it has to do with kind of claiming your own happiness. You just claim it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Dr. Lee Lickerman is the director of primary care at the University of Chicago. He's a contributor to Psychology Today, the Crane's Chicago Business, USA Today, Slate, the Huffington Post, and the CEO of Imagine MD. And Dr. Ash Eldifrawi is a licensed clinical psychologist, a researcher in neurology and biopsychology, a forensic examiner. Oh my gosh, that's got to be a tough job. The director of brand advertising at Google.
I love that.
And that's a fun one. Oh my gosh, that's a roller coaster right there. And they both have written The 10 Worlds. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Wow. Good morning.
Sorry, I went long. I'm an amateur
awesome intro.
I'm an amateur psychologist in a way. Yeah. So where are you both in Chicago right now?
We are.
Yes, we are.
Dr. Ash, would you pronounce your last name so I don't get it wrong again?
Sure, it's Eldifrawi.
Eldifrawi. Okay, it's easy enough. Now that I hear it. So tell me about the book and why. Maybe we can start with why we can't just be happy by deciding we want to be. Why is that?
Well, we can't be happy just by deciding we want to be because we can't feel anything just by deciding we want to feel it. We're not really in control consciously of what we feel, and it works in a very particular way. Our emotions are designed by evolution to produce a certain effect, and we have to figure out how to take advantage of that. We can't, unfortunately, just decide it, because as you, in the story you just told, which was a great story, I'm sure when you were feeling anxious and worried before you got on that river, you wanted just to be happy, but you couldn't figure out how to make yourself feel happy. Something happened to induce that feeling in you.
What happened, actually? I don't even understand what happened on that river. Do you? I mean, I don't know if you could even tell me, but what do you think?
I'll tell you what I think happened is that your thoughts changed. And when your thoughts changed because of what you were seeing on that river, you were taking in a vista, it took your mind away from the thing that had just happened, the loss of your job, and it stirred up a different belief in you. And it was that belief that brought on that different feeling, that belief that, in your instance, you're not alone. You suddenly had that thought, and that was a comforting thought. And then because you weren't alone, I'm suspecting the other belief that came up with that was, you can survive this. You can make a difference. You're not powerless. And so you had hope. And with that feeling of hope from that belief that you weren't powerless came joy again. And in fact, that's sort of the core thesis of our book, which is that how happy we are is not determined just by what happens to us, but what we believe about what happens to us. And if we can become mindful of our beliefs and understand our beliefs and actually change our beliefs, we can develop an inner life state that's happy no matter what.
Is the book for the reader specifically, or could I read the book and use the information to help Robin, for example, who's never sad, by the way? So it's a bad choice. But you know what I mean? Do I have to be the one who decides to be happy, or can I coach somebody else to be happy?
Well, as a psychologist, I sure as heck hope you can, because that was my job.
That's your job, yeah, right.
Yeah, so no, so absolutely. I think that it's been actually fascinating to watch some people having read the book, and which kind of helps them understand what their beliefs are, and in fact, if you read the book, what world you come from, which we can get into what that means, and it sparked a really interesting dialogue. But I think it's absolutely possible because this book will arm you with the ability to kind of help people understand what their beliefs about happiness are, and then based on that, you could probably help them understand how to get control over that. I mean, as a psychologist, I believe in the power of beliefs is a critical part of any journey for people to change, because by bringing those beliefs into your awareness rather than these subconscious things that are creating this behavior in you which you don't understand, by starting to understand that, you can start getting control over it and creating a really rich dialogue about it. So absolutely, you can help other people by gaining this wisdom.
And there are different kinds of happy. I mean, you have to be happy as a person, and then if you're a parent, you have to be happy with your children. And if you're a spouse, you have to be happy with your spouse. So there are all different kinds of happiness.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because all of the things that you just said have in common is that the happiness you're experiencing comes from being attached to those people, from having them in your life. In fact, that is one kind of happiness, and in fact, it even has a neurological basis, which is that when we contemplate the good things or people that we have in our lives, like our spouse and our children and our job, that produces joy. It's the contemplation of having those things. But that's only one type of happiness. There are other types as well.
Do you know what? I'm going to give you an example from myself and just get your feedback on this. I cannot go to a restaurant by myself. And here's why. Let's say I go to Burger King, and I'm sitting there, and they got this song from 1982 on the overhead, and if I'm by myself, forget it, I'm sad. It's like, oh man, I remember that song. But if I go there with Robin, I'll go, oh man, remember that song? And so it's the same song, everything's the same, but if I go with somebody, I'm happier than if I'm alone. And I see people eating alone all the time, so obviously it's not true for everybody.
So, Larry, there's a lot to unpack there. We need a whole session to deal with the whole.
How much is it going to cost me?
Yeah, the amount of stuff you just unloaded on me, starting with like 80 songs at Burger King. I think, though, that maybe what you're touching, I mean, definitely shared experiences or being able to share experiences with different people can transform an experience for you. It's something you enjoy or share. So I think that. Yeah, so that's normal. That's okay. I don't think you should, have to, talk to your therapist about that. But it does reflect Alex's point that, again, all of us have certain attachments or things that we need around us, whether it's people, whether it's things, whether it's money, or whatever it have you to make you happy. The risk, as you already outlined, when they're not there, you can't be happy. So there's a risk because the very same things that can make you happy, if they're taken away, and even when Robin was talking about spouses or whatever, people get divorced, people lose people in their lives, and suddenly those very same things that you gain joy from are the exact cause of your suffering and misery, which is one of the things we talk about in this book, and the risk of attachment.
Now, let's be fair to the book. The book is called The 10 Worlds, The New Psychology of Happiness. Could you explain what you mean by the 10 worlds?
The 10 worlds represent inner life states that we all cycle through. And it's actually derived from a long-time Buddhist philosophy, and we sought modern scientific evidence to support the existence of these worlds. And just to give you an example of what I mean, the lowest of the 10 worlds is called hell. And it's not too hard to figure out what hell means, right? That's the modern day equivalent of suffering. It's the life condition of suffering. So when you are suffering, whether for a moment only or months and years, intensely or mildly, if you are suffering, you are in the world of hell. And the idea is that when you're in that world, that internal life state, no matter what happens to you, that is the lens through which you experience all of your life. So even if you were to say win a Nobel Prize or win the lottery that someone just did, if you're in the life state of hell, that you will not be able to derive joy from those attachments, from those events. Wow. And so it really depends on much more. It's all about your inner life state in combination with what happens to you.
Can you imagine that lady who won that $1 billion? She's in hell. Oh my gosh, that would be horrible. I mean, so but can we graduate to the next level? I mean, do we have to stay in each level? Are we?
No, you're not. So like Alex said, you can. Every world is sort of has a specific thoughts, feeling, behaviors around it, and you can move from one to the other. But people do tend to gravitate toward what we call their basic life tendency, which is the world which they tend to feel the most comfortable, spend the most time in, because whatever in that world, you have a certain belief of what happiness is, and that's where you feel the most comfortable, or actually where the pursuit of your happiness tends to get. So, for example, I come from the world of tranquility, and the belief of that world is that happiness comes from avoiding pain, and so what that means is that I really hold peace of mind in a very high esteem. But as you can imagine, trying to pursue peace of mind all the time by avoiding risky decisions or bad outcomes, or it's elusive, right? And all it does is lead to more anxiety. It leads to anxiety, because if you try to pursue a life of avoiding pain, you tend to find yourself constantly in anxiety around all the things around you that could cause it. So again, my world then comes from that one belief that I have about what happiness is, and anybody though has entered that world. I'm sure you've entered the world before, where you've really just wished that you could have security or peace of mind in your life.
Yeah, the tranquility statement, I can relate to that. And just going back to my river story, I think what I was doing is nothing was distracting me. I was captive in a way. Because I knew it was going to be 4 hours before I got out of that river, or 6, whatever it was. But I knew that I didn't have to worry about fixing the car or paying any bills. I had 4 hours where I didn't have to worry about all that stuff. So that was pure tranquility, at least temporarily.
That actually sounds exactly what it was, because at that moment, for you, what happiness was absence from the pain of what you had just experienced, and absence from the pain of all those other responsibilities that you just described. You were able to forget them and actually become truly tranquil, which is where that name comes from, tranquility, for the world.
Can you transfer your inner life state to someone else and vice versa?
When you say transfer, do you mean
Yeah, because sometimes if, like we had a friend that was depressed all the time. She's like, woe is me, nothing we could do, would be to cheer her up. And then we started feeling depressed, and then all of a sudden, she's not around anymore because I couldn't handle that kind of situation. Right. Yeah. So it's
The answer is yes. The answer is, in fact, our inner life state influences the inner life states of people around us all the time. In fact, in medical school, one of the things we're taught when we're interviewing patients who are depressed is if we ourselves start to feel depressed, that's probably an indication the patient we're talking to is depressed. So, emotions are clearly, the research shows, are contagious, just like viruses, as are different life states. And in fact, if you probably have the opposite experience, you may be a little glum, and then you're around someone who's just exuding joy and is having, just refuses to be brought down by you, they can also bring you up.
I hope so, yeah.
I think that sometimes stuff can overtake our inner life state, because like when I go camping, I make sure I have everything I've got, tent and all of that stuff. And then for a whole week, you're just like really happy. And then you come home and you've got all this stuff in your house and you wonder, how did we survive this week without this stuff?
That's a great example of, one of the core, beliefs around happiness is that it comes from some type of attachment that can be to things. And what's interesting about what you're saying is that it's depending on kind of where you are, the very same things that could cause you, like having stuff or needing stuff, can cause you pleasure or happiness. They can also feel like a burden. And so it really, again, that's one of the risks of having a happiness that's based on some kind of physical attachment to something, whether that's stuff or something or money or anything else like that.
So there was a flood from the hurricane, and the news guy was in the house, and the woman was talking to the camera, and they were actually standing in the living room, which had water up to the top of the couch. You could see the back of the couch sticking out of the water. And behind the woman, you could see some children. And so the woman is very upset, and she's crying, and she's saying, I don't know what we're going to do. We don't have any insurance at all. And the children were jumping off the back of the couch with swimming masks. They were swimming in the living room. And I said to Robin, there's the difference between children and adults.
Yeah.
They can take a flooded house and have fun in it. So it made me laugh, though.
It's a fantastic story because in fact, it illustrates exactly the point we're trying to make in the book, which is that adult was thinking, I now have a problem that I have no idea how to overcome.
Yeah.
I don't believe I have the power to fix this. And so she was in hell. And the children were thinking, probably not that we have a problem, they were thinking, look, we can swim in our living room. This is fantastic.
Right.
Taking that moment and enjoying it. They did not think to themselves, they had a problem they can't overcome. They probably also had faith that, well, this is just a fun little thing, but our mother will figure it out. And so because they were not being brought into the world of hell by a belief that they couldn't solve a problem, they were having fun.
So I wanted to, on a serious note, we have, like Robin mentioned, somebody who sounded chronically depressed, and I've run into that as well with people. And my solution sometimes, because I don't think I've technically or clinically been depressed, but I've had my sad moments. So for me, I can snap out of it by watching a YouTube video of a dog jumping around or wagging, chasing another dog or something. But it sounds like it's more serious for some people. Do the techniques in the book work as much for somebody who's deeper into unhappiness?
Yeah, I think actually, in fact, we've had some people who are depressed who read the book who actually have written us notes about how much it's helped them, because one of the worst aspect of depression or the world of hell is this idea that you're powerless to end your suffering, and that's what really keeps people there, is that the sense of powerlessness. And I think, reading the book, I think helps people understand that powerlessness is actually just a form of a belief they have, rather than the true nature of the state that they're in. And just understanding that, and understanding that they're only a moment away from a different belief that could pull them out of the world of hell into some other state. I think that gives people some hope. And that I think is the first light, the glimmer of light that you need to pull yourself out of that. So I think absolutely this book, I think, might even be more helpful to people who might be struggling with that.
Yeah.
How did both of you gentlemen isolate these 10 worlds? Was each of these worlds a part of yourself at one point?
Well, they're actually derived from Buddhist philosophy, because for literally about 2,500 years, Buddhist philosophers have been observing all of the life states in which people seem to exist, and they just categorized them in a way and created a model. It's really kind of the 10 worlds model, and the idea is that these are quantitatively and qualitatively very different states. The world of hell feels very different from, say, the world of rapture, which is the world in which we get something that we feel is good and it gives us temporary joy. And so it really was derived from literally 2,500 years of observations of the different states that people are in. And what we did is come along and sort of ask ourselves, what creates these life states? And our answer was surprising to us both, which was that it's actually our beliefs about what happiness is that creates these worlds.
So if we have the belief that everything has a purpose, and I hear people say this all the time, there's a purpose for everything. So if something goes wrong, everything has a purpose. Does that actually help us? I mean, I think it does for me, I guess, if I believe it. Sometimes I don't believe it, though.
Would you say, so, I mean, if by that you mean that when something happens to somebody, the belief they have is that there's a reason that this happens that could have a good outcome. I think that's absolutely a positive thing, because again, like Alex mentioned, your experience on that 6 hour, that's a very long time to float.
You should try it. It's really amazing.
Yeah,
bring some sunscreen though.
When I lose my job, I know what I'm doing when I get fired. I'm going to go float for 6 hours. That was all about you. I think having some kind of moment where you realized, again, your belief that maybe it wasn't exactly this happened for a reason, but thinking it happened for a reason frees you up from just suffering and being in hell, and gives you something else to cling to, which I think pulls you out of that world. So absolutely, I think believing that whether things happen for a reason, or the outcome is not predetermined, or this belief does not have to, or this outcome does not define me, or my happiness is not contained in this certain thing that just happened, is absolutely powerful and transformative for people.
Well, both of you gentlemen have been very successful in trying to combine the two different spectrums in your writings, the creative part and the analytical part.
Well, thank you. We actually we thought long and hard about how we wanted to structure the book, and we didn't want this to be an academic exercise, and we also wanted to show people what it's like to live in each of these worlds and help them better identify what world they may live in. And so that's why we told the book is told in the form of these clinical vignettes, these stories where Ash was actually seeing patients, and we were having discussions about what their worlds were and what the core delusions were. So thank you.
I'm hoping that the book will reach people who are needing a little dose of something that will make them happier. Specifically on the most serious end of this are those folks who are so depressed that they end up committing suicide. If you can stop at least one, then the book all of your efforts have been worth it. So I have a copy of the book, The 10 Worlds. If you would like the copy as a listener, I know you guys have a copy. If you would like the copy that I have, just give me a call, 622-9622. I will leave it here for you. The rest of us have to buy it. I did find it on Amazon. Do you guys have a website you want to recommend?
Yeah, so you can go to the10worlds.com and you can learn more about the book. You can also take a quick self-assessment that will help you determine what world you come from. And
really?
You can, at that point, yeah, you can do about three-minute survey. Take it. I could probably tell you which world you come from. No, just kidding. Take it. It'll tell you what world you come from, and then you can learn more about it or get the book to validate it. So the10worlds.com.
And how did both of you tend to come together on this project?
Well, we met in college, and before he became a psychologist and I became a doctor, we were very interested in answering that question. How can people become happy? And so it was a lifelong. I mean, we've literally been working on this book for 23 years in one form or another, and trying to answer that question.
Let me answer the phone and give the book away. Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
Yeah, this is Sue.
Oh, Sue, do you know where we are?
I know the bedroom book.
Okay.
I have another book waiting for me there.
Oh, okay. Okay. Let's come in and pick it up. It'll be waiting for you, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. I think she said Sue, right, Rob?
Yes.
Sue? Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Alex Lickerman, Dr. Ash Eldifrawi, thank you both for being on the air with us and for doing this. I think you're going to make some huge differences in people's lives, and you can't do any better than that.
Well, thank you so much for having us. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you. We will be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
I'm Jan Marino, and it's my great honor to represent Palm Garden as the winner of the Best of the Best contest for rehab 2 years running. Woohoo! It's not easy to meet the needs of our guests, learn their life stories, and exceed expectations, but that's our goal every single day with everyone that we are blessed to serve. Thank you, WOCA listeners. Please come for a visit anytime. Palm Garden is located on the corner of Southwest 27th Avenue and 34th Street.
Friends, countrymen, tourists, and Ocalans, lend me your ears. Hey, speaking of ears, there is an opportunity for you to help feed and provide good maintenance, housing, and medical care for Marion County's rescued big cats, bears, monkeys, and other disabled or unreleasable wild and exotic animals. Take a tour on Wednesdays or Saturdays of the Endangered Animal Rescue Sanctuary. Call 352-266-2859. The Endangered Animal Rescue Sanctuary is affectionately known as EARS.
Fox News Alert. I'm Lillian Wu. The White House condemning intended attacks sent through the mail